Hi, everyone. It's Andrew Hall, and this is Dead Hand Radio. As you can see, my guest at this point is Jeremy McGowan. Michael is going to be joining us as soon as he can. Had a little bit of a hiccup, and he's on his way. And once he gets to a location where he can join us, he'll be on the live stream. Sorry about the inconvenience. So Jeremy, for anybody who doesn't know him, is a researcher and an experiencer who is actively pursuing answers to the UFO problem through his involvement with several organizations, including the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies and UAP Expeditions, or UAPX. He's also the owner and creator of Osiris, an off-road vehicle that's been modified and enhanced with technology to track and analyze UFO activity from anywhere in the world. His approach to the study of UFOs is a grassroots effort of citizen science using platforms such as Skyhub and UAPDAP or UAPDAP. And he's here to talk about the UAPTF report that just came out, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. So thanks for joining me, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So to begin with, first off, in full disclosure, I was not going to be looking like this or wearing this for your show. I was supposed to come on in an hour, which means I just ran upstairs after building a cabinet for my wife, and I am covered in sawdust and sweat, and yeah, I don't smell that great. So you have killed my potential for getting a shower before this.
You look great, and we can't smell you, thankfully. So I'm just really glad you're here, man.
Here's to 2021 not having smell-o-vision yet.
Yeah, thank God. Thank God for that, man. Yeah, you are quite the handyman. So we'll get into the UAPTF report a little bit later on. I want to get a little bit closer to, give Michael some more time to get here.
Well, and I don't want to upset your viewers right off the bat.
So. Yeah, we don't want people to jump out of the chat room just right away. So look at that. He's got 3 pages worth of notes there.
I am prepared today, my friend. I am prepared today.
I have in front of me, along with the slideshow, the whole report.
That's good, because I'm going to reference this one today, and I'm going to need you and your viewers to follow along with me, because, like you said, we're going to get into it, but there's going to be some. I'm going to break some things down in the report, and I'm going to clarify what the report says versus what it actually means, because those are 2 very different things. And we've got people like Mick West on one side that are taking it to mean one thing. We've got true fanatics on the other side that are taking the same sentences to mean a completely different thing, and they're both wrong. So I'm going to, because I write for the government, I know what they mean. I'm going to tell you exactly what the wording truly means when they say things in the report. And then I'm going to get into some quotes from some very famous people that have appeared recently in the New York Post claiming very specific things, and I'm going to break those quotes down and bounce them off the report as well.
Yeah, everybody is talking about this, man, and it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal. But before we get into that, Jeremy, it's been a while since you and I have talked on a live stream, and I haven't heard any updates about the Osiris. I know you're limited by about what you can say, but I have seen some posts on Twitter within the last couple of weeks. It looks like you've done some cool enhancements to the vehicle.
Yes.
Can you talk about some of that?
Yeah. I can talk about the vehicle. I also want to mention that I have, and this is not only a mention, but it's also a disclaimer. I have joined UAPX. which is the UAP Expedition Group, which is headed by Kevin Day and Gary Voorhees and a bunch of other talent. Man, we've got NASA trained astronauts on staff. We've got you know, some of the biggest brains that you can imagine are in UAPX. And I have the honor and the privilege of serving alongside these guys. Me and my little brain and big mouth are right beside some of the best in the business. But my disclaimer is that what I am saying here on this podcast is not the reflection or the opinions of UAPX. Because I am a member of the team, I support the team and I work with the team and I contribute to the team. Hey, there's me right there. But we're all individuals. We all have different opinions on what's going on, but we're all seeking the truth. We may
Right,
take
we get
different
that.
pathways to get to that, but we're all looking for the same answers. So anything that I say in this presentation in this podcast is not necessarily reflective of the views of the organization for UAPX.
You know what? And that goes for that just goes for anything. I mean, anything you say is your express and singular opinion. It
Yeah.
doesn't reflect the opinion of other guests on this program or myself. It's just your opinion. So, with that, hey, congrats on the acceptance or the appointment, or being involved in the UAPX team.
Man, it is
Uh,
it is a great group of
yeah,
guys. They've got a
it is.
fantastic mission plan. They've got some amazing things in the works. I think that organizations like UAPX, I think, oh, Romania, wow, hi Romania.
Yeah,
Um,
Predator. I don't know his real name, but he shows up quite a bit, and he's a good guy with some great questions.
and
Jack
Jack,
Ryan is
Jack,
also.
that is awesome, man. Thank
Yeah.
you very much, brother. I'm not doing anything except moving these things, so um, I haven't done anything yet. But wait, because being involved with the guys from UAPX, I think that what we're going to accomplish, the things that we're going to do, the places that we're going to visit, the technology that we're bringing together, and the expertise that we're putting on the field at one place and one time, it's a game changer, and it is going to lead us in a direction that, well, quite frankly, we've never been there before.
So I just threw out the link to that website in the chat. If anybody doesn't know who they are, please go check them out and uh, get familiar with them. Now, on to Osiris.
Yes.
Talk about it, man. So, uh, I think last time we talked, you were repairing it from a blowout. And when I say blowout, I mean like the entire um, platform kind of melted down, literally.
Yeah, okay. So I had a problem back in January of this year when I was up in Wyoming with Lou Elizondo and Sean Cahill, and we were working on our now defunct film project up there. We were using and abusing the hell out of the Osiris. And to be quite honest, I was chasing Lou. Lou was in his pickup truck, and I was in the Osiris, and we were boogieing down a dirt road in the backwoods of Wyoming. And it wasn't exactly straight and level, and there was a lot of bumps, a lot of ruts. I hit one bump so hard that my back end came fully up off the ground. My cameraman Dustin Hoyer was in the back seat. He actually smashed his head on the roof and ended up biting his tongue to the point where blood was coming out of his mouth. And and shortly after that, I believe the sensor stack in the back of the Osiris, the power supply unit for the Sky Hub specifically, basically exploded. We heard a series of loud arcing noises. It sounded like somebody was shooting a 22 pistol inside the vehicle. And Sean turns around and says something like, "Hey Jeremy, your red box is blowing smoke and glowing." And I was like, I don't have a red box. And turns out the power supply was actually red hot. The whole box was on fire. Luckily, the way that I had built it, the way that I had put it together, and kudos to the guys at SkyHub in the way that they had created the initial design, prevented any overvoltage or any damage to the rest of the system. The damage was isolated directly within the power supply. But it took me a long time to get around to rebuilding. Well, that's not true. I rebuilt it and I got it functioning again, but I didn't have it redesigned and rehoused and recontained until just recently. So it had been offline for quite a while. When I went through gutting everything, rewiring everything, replacing the power supply, and putting it in a new container, venting it, mounting fire extinguishers this time, and doing a lot of upgrades to it. So it was a long process, and all of this comes out of my own pocket. So I don't have any funding or a donation page or anything like that. This comes out of my own pocket when my wife allows me to spend an extra dollar on it.
So I do have that clip that you posted
Yeah,
on Twitter,
yeah. If you
and
want to run that, that's great.
I'll throw that up here.
Okay. Yeah. So this
People
clip
can check it out.
is literally you can. Nope, wrong clip.
Which one is which clip?
That's not the one of it catching on fire. This is actually what the remodel looks like. So you can play this one as well, and
all right. We'll start with this.
Yeah. So this is inside from the back seat of the Osiris. You can see the front screen, then you can see the back screen here. The back screen is actually a full Alienware laptop, and it's running the UFO DAP software. The front screen is running the SkyHub software. And what you're seeing now is on the left is the fisheye camera, which is tracking. When it sees an object, it directs the PTZ, the pan tilt zoom camera, to move to that object and track it. So with the pan tilt zoom camera that's mounted on the top of the car, we're looking at a 32 times optical zoom, not digital. So we're not going to have a lot of pixelation or blurriness because it's a legitimate optical zoom. And as you can see, that the fisheye has a full 360-degree view from the center of the vehicle. So if anything flies around the horizon level, front, back, sides of the vehicle, or directly above us, that fisheye is going to pick it up. And then the software is going to direct the pan tilt zoom, which has a full 360 multiple rotation capability. It doesn't have a stop to it. It will be able to fully track any airborne object within the visual vicinity of the Osiris. Now, what you're not seeing on this video is all the ancillary sensors that I have inside this thing. We've got magnetometers and accelerometers and inclinometers and redundant GPS systems. We've got equipment and software-defined radios that are monitoring everything from 25 megahertz up to 1750 megahertz. And it's all being recorded and time-stamped with the GPS times. So nothing's going to be out of sync, and all the data is going to be stored in the same database. And we're looking. I mean, we're actively looking. This is not going to be blurry, blobby, black and white videos that are grainy of some anomalous object that may or may not be descending in the water. We're going to show you what the hell we're looking at.
Right. So I just added a couple of moderators to the chat. So because there's ladies and gentlemen in the chat, and if anybody says anything that's considered a little bit derogatory or inflammatory, offensive, they're going to be able to delete those comments.
Awesome. And Jack just asked a question. He says, will Jeremy ever do a gear breakdown? I can imagine others wanting to start up their own Osiris projects. Maybe he should sell the Osiris car conversion kits.
That's a good idea.
Well, first off, yes, I am going to do a gear breakdown. I'm going to do it in a series of videos. And I actually put out a tweet about that maybe about an hour or so ago. Basically, right after the UAPTF report came out, my DMs, my Facebook messages, my email messages they've exploded. I've actually had to silence my phone because it will not stop. And people are upset about the UAPTF report because they didn't get what they thought that they were going to get. and they're asking me, what do I do? How do I get my own data? How do I build what you have built? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together a series of videos is specifically on the Osiris, on the two different types of sensor systems that I have in there, how I set it up, how I wired it up, what it's looking for. I'm also going to highlight the downfalls of it, what it doesn't do, what I wish it would do, what it's not capable of doing yet, and things like that, because both the organizations that I'm using to use the sensor equipment from, they
Sky
both
Hub and
Sky
UADAP,
Hub and UFO DAP, yeah,
UAPDAP.
or UAPDAP, they both need help.
Yeah.
They both need volunteers. They
Yeah,
both
they're
need funding.
nonprofits.
Yeah, exactly. So, people have come to me today. Aerospace engineers were pinging me on Twitter, giving me information on legitimate gun turret cameras, FLIR cameras, and things like that for helicopter platforms, and all sorts of intuitive and ingenuitive ideas that we can look to incorporate, because one of the things that we need more than anything is we need to be able to assemble basically a citizen army. We need to put together a group of people, a large group of people that spans East Coast to West Coast, that has all these sensor platforms, and they have all the tech, and they have the ability to be mobile or even stationary, putting it in their backyard and collect this data, because it does not matter how much information the United States government is going to be collecting on UFOs now, past, present, in the future. It doesn't matter. We're not going to see it. It's going to be compartmentalized and collected and shoved in a drawer somewhere in Redstone, and it's never going to come to us. So if we want to see what is out there, if we want to understand exactly what is happening in our skies, we need to step up and be the responsible adults that collect the data.
And to avoid issues like the one that we're about to show, Jeremy's going to have a whole series of how-to videos on his YouTube channel with instructions, blueprints, and where to go, a kit list, and where to go to buy those items. So here's what you don't want to run into.
Yeah, this is the Sky Hub. Bust.
Going up to the top, turn around, went, oh yeah! Got to the top of the freaking ceiling and just kind of chilling there, real calm, watching everybody.
What's that?
Fuck is that?
Okay, your red box is on fire and sparking.
The red box is barking.
Oh shit!
Sparking.
Yeah, so basically, if you want to turn the volume down just a hair, basically what you just saw is what I was talking about. This is in Wyoming. This is in just outside of Sheridan, Wyoming, and that truck in front of me is literally Lou Elizondo driving his, I think it's a Dodge pickup truck, and he's got gas in it down through this road. And we had gone through some serious terrain earlier, and it was not kind to the Sky Hub in the way that it was set up. And as you can tell, you hear that series of pops. It was pop, 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 pop.
Sounded
And
like electrical. Was that
well,
an
that was
electrical fire?
exactly it. It was arcing. It was
Okay.
arcing inside the power supply. It sounded like somebody shooting a 22 caliber pistol. And then as soon as it stopped arcing, that was simply because it caught on fire. And that's when you can hear Sean turn around and say something about, your red box is on fire, or your red box is glowing or something. And, little did he know that the red box wasn't supposed to be red. The whole thing was glowing red hot. You can't see it on the dash cam, but the inside of the car was filling up with smoke. It was nauseating, the stench inside, because it was burning the cabling and the wiring and everything on the inside of the vehicle. It was nasty. And like I said earlier, my cameraman Dustin Hoyer was in the back seat. He was still bleeding out the side of his mouth from where he slammed his head on the top of the vehicle as we hit some ruts and stuff.
Wow.
The ass end of the car was literally airborne off the ground.
So just let me bring everybody else up to speed who just joined in, because it looks like we got a few more people in here. Also want to say shout out to Unidentified Celebrity Review.
Hey.
BGs, thanks for joining us. Jack Ryan, of course, he's been here since we started. Curtis Bechtold, sorry I botched your name, man. Jack Hetfield, Predator, uh, DJ San Marco, and Santa Maria 5248.
Yeah, and BG's, yeah, you say scary stuff. It was scary stuff because I don't know if you could see it on the video there, but when I jumped out of the Osiris to run around the back end and open up the back tailgate and find out what was happening, I forgot to put it in park. So as I stopped and I jumped out of the car, it
That's
starts moving
understandable,
again.
man. The
I got
car's
to
on
jump back.
fire.
Yeah,
You
I
want
got to
to,
jump back in the thing, and that's when
yeah,
you hear me say, "Oh shit!"
right.
as I'm jumping back in and throwing the gear shift back into park. And then the funny thing was, I think Sean has video of everything because Sean and I got out of the car and ran back around to the backside at the same time. Sean was recording on his iPhone, and I'm sure he probably still has that video. And then, of course, using our radios that we had, we let Lou know what was going on. And then Dustin, my camera guy, who had the Red Epic, he jumps out of the back seat, still has the Red Epic rolling, and there is 4K video somewhere of my fat ass ripping wires and pulling things out of the back of the car, trying to get the fire and the smoke to go away. So that exists somewhere, but the only thing that I've got is what one of my dash cams captured.
I just want to mention, hi, Stephen. Thanks for joining us. If for those of you who just joined us, we Michael Schratt had some a little hiccup. He can explain it to you when he gets here, but he's on his way. As soon as he gets to a spot where he can get internet connection and jump on with us, he's going to join us. We're probably not going to do a full interview with him tonight because I think he's well, we might do a full interview with him, but we'll probably do the UAPTF review, a report review, as soon as he gets here. And then if Jeremy wants to hang out, he can, or if he wants to drop out at that point, then Michael and I will decide if we're going to continue talking for another little bit.
Yeah, I'm good for a while. So
cool.
As long as my office door doesn't break down from my daughter having a fit over getting beat in Minecraft, we should be good to go.
Yeah. So right now it's just a catch up session for Jeremy and I because we haven't talked on a live stream for a little while. We do talk behind the scenes quite a bit because we're friends in real life and we live in the same town. We have a lot in common, but that stuff has nothing to do with UFOs. It wouldn't be interesting to anybody here. Jeremy's just a good guy and he's a great dad. You got to trust me on
appreciate
that
man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a fact. I've seen it personally, and I appreciate that. It deserves a mention. So
I just texted to you on your Twitter, Andrew, your DMs, a couple of photos of the new configuration. I don't know if you can bring those up or not.
oh yeah, okay. So let me see if I can.
Doing these things live is always interesting because
it's a little challenging.
You never know what's going to happen. You heard me stumbling over my words there about 2 or 3 minutes ago. It was because even though I've got my headphones on, I could hear my daughter absolutely having a fit of something behind 2 other doors. So I have no idea what's going on, but I know she was playing Minecraft, and who knows?
Yeah, we got this, man. We're professionals here.
Yeah.
And if it's not entertaining, I think they'll let us know.
Yeah. So the whole idea of building these Osiris vehicles, I will absolutely help, aid, and assist anyone who wants to do this. I think I made enough mistakes in putting this whole thing together that I can be a cautionary tale of how not to do it and how to do it correctly. I mean, I was drilling holes in my roof and running cabling through my headliner before I even understood what SkyHub fully did. And most of the UI equipment that I've got, the Alienware in the back and the Microsoft Surface in the front, that Alienware computer is what I was using up until about a month ago when I replaced it. Yeah, that was my home PC, and the Microsoft Touch. I kind of stole that from my wife, and she just hasn't asked for it back yet. So a lot of these things are not what the systems were initially designed to do or to look, but because this is a mobile platform, there's a lot of things that had to be modified to make this thing operational and mobile. I mean, I'm running cellular routers, dual SIM cellular routers, and spoofing uh, um, spoofing the router to make it think that it's not on Google Fi. Yeah, so this is currently my the back end of the Osiris. You can see that toolbox up in the upper left. That's a Stanley toolbox where I'm now housing most of the SkyHub sensor devices, and you can't
Is it
see.
fireproofed?
Well, there's a fire extinguisher in the vehicle,
Oh, okay.
so. But what you can't see is I've layered it on the inside. It's sitting. The power supply unit is sitting on top of anti-vibrational foam. The ends have been cut out for PC fans to suck in and blow out air to keep a cooling breeze going through the entire box. I've got 5 radios there. Those aren't. I mean, they're not expensive, but they're decent submersible waterproof radios that I've programmed into custom frequencies that also match up with the ham radio that I've got on the front of the car. So I have extended range capabilities. Right there in the middle, that big black thing that looks kind of like a calculator with 6 buttons on it. That's my tri-field meter. To the right of that, the white with the radiation symbol, that's my Geiger counter. But it's not just a normal Geiger counter, it's also a data logger. So I can plug that in to either the Surface or the Alienware, and with an extended cable, I can either record in real time or I can download the logs from what it records. So if I'm out walking around and I'm taking measurements in certain areas, it will record it, and then I can dump it into the computer. In front of that, there's a stereo recording device that I can carry around just for external recording. Power supplies, external power supplies, and I've got the silver tube is a blue laser. The black tube right beside of it, right in front of that, is a green laser. Then you can see this big fisheye camera down in the lower right. That is part of the UFO or the UAPTF system. And that is the PTZ camera. And inside of there is not just the camera, but there's that box underneath of it has a whole lot of different disparate sensor technology embedded into that as well. But the idea is it gets placed on the roof of the car. I've built a very, very strong neodymium magnetic mount to this thing. So I can actually do about 80, 85 miles an hour going down the road with this thing just being attached with the magnets to the top of the car. And if you go to the I think is it the next picture that I sent you? Yeah, flip over to the next picture. Yeah, right there. So you can see it. So you can see the PTZ camera in the front with the magnet mount. Wow, I'm getting tongue tied. With the magnet mount holding it up.
That looks great, man. So it looks like you got some weather stripping or something on here to keep the water out.
Okay, so this camera that you see in the front, the one that says "Screw Aerodynamics" on it, the 2 antenna off to the side of that, those are actually my ADS-B antennas. They pull down the transponder signals from the Mode S and Mode C transponders from aircraft.
Oh, okay.
So I can tell exactly, as well as MLAT transponder signals. So I can look for military aircraft, civilian aircraft, as long as they're transponding. I'll be able to correlate and cross-reference anything that I'm seeing with the fisheye camera or the PTZ and identify it as potentially a known aircraft or a known military aircraft if they're transponding. Now, the fisheye camera that you're seeing here, that's a 12 megapixel fisheye camera.
This guy right here?
No, the one closer.
The one in front?
Yeah, okay. The one in the front, or closer to the viewer. So that's the fisheye camera, and that's what sees then the 360-degree view. Now,
so just to orient people, are we looking at
that's the back
from the back to the front?
Correct.
Okay,
From the
so
back
we're
to the
standing
front.
at the back of the card. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
we're standing at the back. So this fisheye camera is what is constantly scanning the sky. It sees anything above and all the way to the horizon around the vehicle. So if I'm parked on perfectly level, flat ground, it will be able to see 360 degrees around me from horizon to horizon. It will not miss anything. Now, obviously, like my house in front is blocking it and things like that, but it has the capacity, the capability of seeing everything. So that is constantly scanning the sky. As soon as it detects an object, the software in the UAPTF system will detect through camera analytics and object analytics, it will detect motion. And then the PTZ camera, the big boy up there in the front that you're looking at, that will automatically turn, point, shoot, and zoom into the target. And it has, again, 360-degree capability to it, and it will fully track the object across the sky. Now, unless this thing is super close and doing 20,000 miles an hour, I'm not going to lose it. I'll be able to track this thing wherever it goes as long as it's still within visual range. Now,
Yeah, you wanna break right there and answer a couple of questions from the chat?
yeah, let's do some questions here.
Okay, so John Poe asks, does the equipment raise the tri-field meter?
He says
Does the
truck field meter. I don't know what a
Yeah,
truck.
he corrected that was a typo.
Oh,
So does the equipment raise the tri-field meter? Oh, so okay, does it come up and down?
yes.
Ah, cool.
So just by using the equipment inside my vehicle, I can see what it is, or not what it is, but I can see the effect that it has on the electromagnetic frequency spectrum inside the vehicle. Um, Most of my stuff is attempted to be shielded, but again, I've done this on a poor man's budget. The tri-field meter is not necessarily for use in the vehicle. I have a standard practice of trying to use it at least 30 feet away from the vehicle. So when I set up in a location and I'm looking for something and I'm going to be there for an extended amount of time, I will walk. I actually have paperwork and charts and everything that I've developed, but it's kind of like a gunner's chart or a range card if you've ever been a machine gunner in the military. But I'll put a point in the middle, and then I'll draw a concentric circle around that point. The point represents the vehicle. The circle is a 30-foot radius, and then about every 5 or 10 degrees or so, I'll stop and I'll mark what a baseline reading on the tri-field meter is. So I'll know everything that's around my vehicle. And if during an investigation I'm visually tracking something, I will walk that perimeter circle again and see if I'm catching anything on the tri-field meter outside of that 30-foot range.
Portable tri-field.
Yep, handheld. Yep.
Is there a like a tri-field meter mounted to the vehicle, or is it always portable?
Well, the sensor stack that I have incorporates EMF detectors. We're not going to call them tri-field meters, but there are EMF detectors that are being logged and the data is being recorded. So the handheld one that you saw is for me doing something outside of the vehicle.
So Jack Ryan wants to know, has Jeremy ever been pulled over and had to explain his whole setup?
Ironically, no.
That's a
No,
good
I
question.
haven't. I think this is probably for two primary reasons. One, it's a 22-year-old Land Rover that barely makes it to 85 miles an hour. So me getting a speeding ticket in this thing is probably never going to happen. And the second thing is, man, I live in Vegas. We've got people that drive around in cars that look like the hovercraft from Star Wars, the land speeder from Star Wars. That's my vehicle doesn't really stick out in Vegas that much.
Yeah, and Stephen Horwath asks if you get questioned by civilians a lot, like people who have an interest in what you're trying to do.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I know it was interesting. The very first day that Cahill and I got into the car and we were gassing up and we were getting ready to head out on our trip from Vegas to Lou's house in Wyoming. We stopped at a gas station right across the street, and I was filling up at the Arco station there, Chevron, and we had two or three people that were lining up as I was gassing up just to ask questions about who we were and what this vehicle was, and what the hell's going on. So it was actually pretty cool.
That is cool. So that was it that I saw for questions. If you guys have more questions, feel free to drop them in there. What about this big dude back here? Did you already talk about this guy?
Yeah, that's the pan tilt zoom camera. That's
Okay.
the one. That's the one that the fisheye triggers, and then the PTZ tracks, zooms, and follows whatever's in the sky.
And then looks like you got a radiation detector.
No, that's a full suite weather station. So I have the
cool.
I have the wind speed anemometer. I have the weather vane system there. I've got photovoltaic cells on the back end that'll tell me what the UV index is. I've got that little cup on the top that is actually a rain gauge. So I have barometers. I have anemometers. I even have I can't even pronounce it, but basically what this enables me to do is understand what the ground level weather conditions are. Because if you can understand what the ground level weather conditions are, you can extrapolate what weather conditions are at altitude based on disparate data sources like NOAA, like the government weather broadcast stations, or the FAA weather broadcasts that they give to the pilots. So knowing what the ground level weather is and then knowing what weather is at altitude allows you to debunk the debunkers. Because if somebody comes to you and says, oh, well, what you saw was simply a temperature inversion, or it was a lenticular cloud, you can go, well, I just happen to have all the very accurate weather data that shows that the UV index was whatever it was, and the barometric pressure was this, and the dew point was that, and well, that negates the entire idea of a temperature inversion. So bugger off.
Yeah, because that was ever since Blue Book, they were using that as an explanation for UFOs, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of weather. Hell, even the current UAPTF report talks about weather phenomena.
Mm-hmm. So Jack Ryan says, has a UFO ever noticed Osiris? Not yet, but I have a follow-up question on that one. Do you have any plans to bait in any way to try to attract attention from UFOs?
Yes.
Great question, Jack.
I do, as a matter of fact. I don't know if I have a readily available picture to send to you. Let me see if I can find it. And while I'm talking, I'll search and look for the photographs. But actually, I've got a video that I'm going to send to you right now, Andrew, if you want to.
Yeah, shoot it over. And while you're doing that, I will pop up a couple more questions so you can think and fiddle at the same time. If someone wanted to start an Osiris themselves, how would one go about getting permission from the creator? I don't even think that's necessary.
There is no permission needed, man. This is open source. There is nothing. I am not going to put something inside this vehicle that is a closed off proprietary system that hoards data or otherwise prevents public access to the data. Everything that you're seeing here is purchased from Amazon or another online store and is simply assembled with guidance from SkyHub or UAPDAP. It's very simply complicated, I guess, to say, for two completely different systems working in tandem together. But there is nothing that you need for permission unless it's your wife's car. Then you should probably ask her before you drill holes in it.
True. And just a follow-up question on that one, and kind of a suggestion. If somebody did want to start this and they had a budget of, say, $500 and they really wanted to just get out there and do it, first of all, you don't have to have the SkyHub mounted to a vehicle.
No,
it's a freestanding sensor stack that you can put on the roof of your house if you live in a hot zone, where there's a lot of
mobile.
That's true.
Never meant to be mobile. I'm the weirdo that turned it into a mobile platform.
The hero, man. Hero. Okay, you mispronounced that word. That's all. Did you get that video sent off?
Yeah, it should have gone.
Okay, I'll give it a
should come
second.
through.
Fabricated with trial and error. Good point,
That's
Stephen.
exactly what it is. It is fabricated with trial and error. I have a list of equipment that the folks from UAPTF and SkyHub have given me, and I have taken that list of equipment and basically laid it out on my desk, and then tried to figure out mobile. So it is nothing but trial and error based on man, I'm riding the coattails of some genius designers and developers and engineers who laid all this out. I'm just the meathead with a roll of duct tape.
Did you happen to notice I got kicked? I kicked myself out of the live stream. Is everybody still in the chat? Can somebody give me a heads up or a thumbs up that you guys are still in the chat room and we didn't switch to a different stream? I accidentally kicked myself out of the chat, and I think I refreshed the whole thing.
Yep, we're back.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. And now it's even better.
Honey, what happened to the car? Don't worry, babe. It's just an Osiris. You're safer now.
Yeah. Did that video come through on your Twitter yet?
I'll take a look at it. How much light pollution? John Poe says, how much light pollution makes it useless? That's a great question, man, because Las Vegas has a massive amount of light pollution.
Yeah.
How far outside of the city do you have to go before it's useful?
Well, that's a brilliant question, and that was exactly the reason that I made it mobile, is because I live in the world's brightest city here in Las Vegas. If a light bulb ever existed, it's been here, and I thought that I would have to get out and go into the deep dark the desert to make this thing operational. It wasn't until it was fully functional that I realized that you don't have to be outside of a bright area.
That makes sense, man.
These things are designed. I mean,
yeah.
You look at the Phoenix lights. They were flying over Phoenix, right? You know, all of these sightings that we're seeing, Catalina Island, we're seeing it off the shore of of Long Beach. That's not a dark area, right? So these things are designed to operate in both daytime and in nighttime environments. And unless a street light happens to take flight and move, it's not going to affect the system. The system is designed to see motion and objects in motion. It's not going to. It's going to see something that wasn't there previously, and it's going to see something that's moving across.
Even if you can't see it, the equipment's designed to see it.
I'm not going to go that far because it's not seeing into spectrums that our eyes can't. That's going to be something that in the future we're going to probably be looking at is infrared spectrometry and things like that. But that gets into some serious buckets.
Yeah, for sure. So I can't find that video, Jeremy. Where did you send it?
I sent it to the same place that I sent the other two pictures to.
Twitter? Okay.
Yes.
Let me get over there. Let's see if there's any more questions.
Yeah, my insurance provider.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So read the question and who it's coming from, just so when people are listening.
Yeah,
audio
so Jack Hetfield, I hope your insurance provider isn't watching right now. Yeah, nope. I haven't told them. I don't even know what they would say, man. I don't.
Yeah, would that stuff even be covered? Who knows, man?
I don't know. I should probably look into that.
Yeah, I don't think I can download it from Twitter.
John Poe, if you are in Los Angeles, in Long Beach, ping me on Twitter, DM me, and we should talk, because I happen to have a group of people that are called UAPX that are looking for people that have access to Catalina, that have access to Long Beach, that have access all up and down the western seaboard. We're looking for volunteers in specific areas to be able to put units out there. So.
Jeremy, man, I can't download that video, and it's too small to share.
No worries.
Okay.
But yeah, the question was, am I going to do anything that's going to be for baiting the UAP?
Right.
And the answer is yes. The very first thing that I'm doing is I'm taking this in stages and steps and baby steps, basically. The first thing is I'm going to be using a theory from Jacques Vallée, and I think most people probably realize by now that Jacques Vallée was or is what a lot of people consider to be one of the most premier UFO investigators that has ever walked the earth. He was actually the inspiration for the French character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That was supposed to be based on Jacques Vallée, and Jacques contributed to the development of the movie with Steven Spielberg, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The reason I'm saying this is because one of the overarching tropes in the movie is the fact that we were communicating with the UFOs in the movie through a series of colored lights and sounds. So what I exactly
Yeah,
and
I'm probably way off tune on that, but if anybody's heard that tune, remember that old there used to be a handheld little device where you'd press the light button and then it would make a sound. Simon Says, I think, is what it was called. And you press the light button and a sound goes off, and then it you have to repeat the sequence. So yeah, that's what Close Encounters did. They were communicating lights and
that idea is a Hollywood interpretation of one of Jacques Vallée's theories, which I have actually incorporated already into the Osiris. I have a series of extremely high output, high intensity discharge LEDs, full color spectrum LEDs mounted on the top of the car. They're blindingly bright. And I have the ability to program specific color patterns, specific color frequencies into these LED emitters, and have them repeat specific patterns that Jacques speaks about. So it is my hope that I'll be able to test this theory very soon and see if I have the ability to elicit a response.
That's cool. I think you can, you know, how they're attracted to radiation or radioactive materials.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any legal restrictions to you going near, like places that might have radioactive material? And I'm not talking about going out to the Nevada test site or driving up to a nuclear power plant, like natural. Okay. Radio RF antenna, like I saw one the other day out in Pahrump. They emit radioactive frequencies.
Well, not radioactive frequencies. They emit radiation.
Radiation,
not
yes,
necessarily radioactive.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. So any type of
radiation
broadcast that you have that is outside of the citizens band or the family family sideband FSB, I can't remember what it was called, but if it's a requirement to be licensed, you have to have a ham amateur radio operator's license, which is easy to get. So that is a licensing restriction. The issue that I want to do is I want to be able to basically fly fish for UAP. I have an idea. I have a theory that is based on the prevalency of sightings of UAP around our carrier strike groups, our nuclear missile silos, our nuclear power plants. You know, these are all areas. Even my sighting that I had personally in Jordan back in '95 involved a nuclear weapon. So this seems to be the fact that they're attracted to things that emit gamma rays. Yeah, right.
Jack Ryan says, Andrew, he should, meaning Jeremy should just haul around a nuclear reactor. around in the
Yeah,
south. That's Osiris 2.0. We've already talked about that.
Maybe 3.0. I mean, if I can get Doc Brown and Marty McFly involved in this, we might be able to get a Mr. Fusion on the back. But we have, as a matter of fact, the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, I think it's in Title 40, actually prohibits stockpiling uranium by U.S. citizens. If I'm probably misquoting, but I believe a U.S. citizen is able to own up to 5 pounds of unenriched raw uranium.
Wow. Well,
So
I know you can buy souvenirs from places like Alamogordo. I think they have
yeah,
pieces of the original test site out there that you can purchase. Those are radioactive,
yeah,
and they're not high enough radiation to be dangerous, but they're probably not going to attract any UFOs either.
yeah. No, they're probably not. So what I would like to do, they have cesium-137 chips that you can purchase.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of things that you can get that do not require a license as long as you stay underneath of the upper limit caps legally. What I want to do is I want to break those upper limit caps, but I want to break them legally. I want to create a partnership with like a research laboratory or a university or somebody who has the ability to use larger amounts of radioactive material in a safe handling capacity. Because what I want to do is I want to be able to go out somewhere that has very, very, very little naturally occurring radiation, right? So somewhere that is kind of a dead zone for uranium deposits or any type of emissions. And I want to be able to, with a partnership with this university or scientific organization, I want to be able to take the Osiris out there, and I want to fly a weather balloon with this gamma emitting device on the weather balloon, whether it's an analog or whether it's actual material that emits gamma radiation. I want to fly it safely with all the permissions, with all the legalities, the I's dotted and T's crossed, but I want to fly it, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 feet up in a weather balloon and monitor. Because if this is done in an area where there was never any type of radioactive emissions previously, if the UAP are geared up to be able to detect gamma radiation, and this gamma radiation is occurring in an area that was previously quiet, it should, in theory, attract them to that location.
Mm-hmm. Stephen Horwath says, I would say the rover has enough radiation to grow hair, but we lost enough with Burns working on it.
Yeah. I think I don't know if this is
I got some burns
because of age or if it's because of all the RF going around on the inside of the.
Do you know Stephen?
I am so bad with names. I think
Yeah.
I might. No, I know Stephen. I was on his podcast the other day.
Okay. So it reminded me of some of the experiments they're doing out at Skinwalker Ranch. When you were talking about sending a balloon up that emits gamma radiation,
Mm-hmm.
that is something that I think like Travis Taylor would come up with, that kind of an outside the box experiment to see if you can elicit some kind of a response from the phenomenon. Have you thought about talking to those guys, or did you ever get in communication with those guys at Skinwalker?
Yes and no. Oh, and by the way, I'm messing with Stephen. I know Stephen quite well. Stephen is the guy that was helping me work on the Osiris. He was the guy that was helping me keep it together.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't have a podcast. I was giving him hell. But he's
I kind of
the
figured
guy.
that the comment he made sounded like he was working on it with you.
Yeah. No, he's burnt himself pretty crisply several times welding on the underneath side of it. And I appreciate the hell out of him for that. But the Skinwalker guys, I have spoken with Brandon Flugel publicly via Twitter. I have spoken with Thomas Winterton privately via DM. I've spoken with Dragon, both publicly on podcasts, face to face and via DM, and I've had a series of email exchanges with Eric Bard. I have not yet secured an invitation to go to the ranch. Let's put it that way. There, I don't know. I don't know why it's so difficult to get. In they're doing their own thing over there, so I'm going to let them do their own thing. It's not my place to sit up and call them out on anything. Every interaction that I've had with those guys has been absolutely above board, and everybody has been cordial and pleasant with me. I've just not been able to get the Osiris onto the property.
That's cool. So if the invitation is extended, you're open to it?
If the invitation is extended, I will drive there tonight.
You were, I'm not sure if you ever said anything conclusive about it, but I think you were talking with some of the other locations around the ranch to see if you could get access. Did you ever get anything solid on that? Or, of course, if we're talking outside of your NDA, I don't want to.
No, my NDA now, the NDA that I'm under now has nothing to do with Skinwalker.
Okay, cool.
The NDA that I'm under now is for a production that I am involved with, that the only thing that I can say about it is that it is a serious film production that is geared towards showing how people can use science to gather information on UAP. Cool. And that's all I can say about it.
Yeah.
But with Skinwalker, no, I've spoken to a lot of the surrounding property owners, and I've gotten permission from 2 of them to bring the Osiris onto theirs. My goal is to go to Skinwalker proper. I don't want to try to do an end run. I don't want to try to go through the back door and steal data that Skinwalker is capitalizing on. I'd like to do this properly and professionally and not cause any bridges to burn. But I do have permission to go on to surrounding properties. So
cool. And any plans on doing test runs before you actually go into production on the other project?
Yes and no. God, if I had the budgeting, if I had the time, I would be out constantly debugging and running tests on the equipment. As it stands now, filming starts very, very soon, like really soon, and I'm still stressing that I can't get a couple connections to get tight. I'm still stressing that some of the software has given me some problems and things like that. I got my fingers crossed that when I show up on location and everything is set up, that Murphy did not follow me out there. But these things are real. We're not staging it. We're not scripting it. If I get out there and the Osiris doesn't perform, then the movie, the film, the documentary, I should call it, is going to suffer because of it. I mean, we're not going to script around it.
Well, that's when you call in the big guns and you get that thing, get that thing done the right way. But because when you're in a production and you got a film crew on standby, that stuff gets expensive quick.
Yeah.
I can't wait till that comes out, man. As soon as you get new word on when that's going to come out, be sure and let us know. Okay.
As soon as I am authorized to talk more about that, I absolutely will. I mean, I made a promise to everybody a long time ago that I would never hold back information, and I would release it as soon as I developed it or gathered the information. This is the one single exception that I'm doing with that, because the NDA that I signed, the data cannot be released by me until after the production has aired.
Yeah, that's fair.
But at least I can still release my data. I just have to hold it a little bit longer.
They want to maintain the integrity of the anonymity of the.
And what's good about this, though, is that I will have the ability, after this film is out, I'll have the ability to sit down and say, hey, this actually happened. Here's the data. Here's all the data to back up what we got or what we didn't get. We don't have any idea what's going to happen. So.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed for something to show up on camera, make itself known, and much data is collected. John Poe says it sounds like he might know a little bit about Brandon. He just says stay on and persistence.
From the interactions that I've had with Brandon, he seems to be a really good guy. Like I said, everybody on that team has treated me very, very well. It's just very difficult to get the extension of that invitation.
Yeah.
I think probably a lot of it is my own the way that I present, because I don't come off as a person who swallows everything right off the bat. I want to see, touch, taste, smell, feel it. I want to repeat it. I want to make sure that, this is legitimate data that I'm looking at. And, sometimes that doesn't fit with people's with people's images.
Yeah, and this is where I'll give a shout out to the Unidentified Celebrity Review, because they have been doing a great job over there of breaking down each episode, and they do a little bit of comic relief in their reviews, but they talk about production failures and successes,
Mm-hmm.
scientific failures and successes. I think they do a pretty good job of breaking down the episodes, and I know that some of those guys are watching the program. They had Dragon on the one of the episodes there, so I know that those guys are watching. Hopefully, they're taking notes, and the seasons are going to improve, and hopefully, they'll bring a guy like you out there with his own rig and do some citizen science along with what they're doing.
It would be nice. It would be very nice if I could go separately outside of the restrictions of their data use, and if I could pull up beside of the what's the physicist guy's name? Travis Taylor.
Travis Taylor.
Yeah, if I could pull up beside him and use my sensor stack to record what he's recording, and then turn back around and look at the world and say, yes,
Yeah,
this was what he got, or no, this was absolutely nothing close to what actually happened. I would love to be able to validate or negate what is happening out there.
yeah, that would be great. So besides Osiris,
Yeah.
And your new is it an appointment, or did they accept you for UAPX, UAP expedition?
Well, I don't really understand the differentiation, but I am a member of the UAPX team.
If you're appointed, that means that they gave you a position. If you're accepted, it means you submitted an application to be accepted.
I was appointed then.
Okay. So you were appointed. Are there any plans, and can you talk about it, to proceed with them with the Osiris?
Well, yeah, absolutely. The UAPX organization, like I said at the beginning of the show, is a collection of some of the best brains in the business. Like I said, we've got astrophysicists, we've got NASA trained astronauts. This is something that was put together by Kevin Day, held together by Gary Voorhees. It is a fantastic collection of brain power and one of the most effective think tanks on the UAP topic that I've ever seen, but not just a think tank. It's an action tank. So this team is going to go out with some of the most amazing equipment you have ever seen. We're talking about things that people think the Osiris is impressive. And this is stuff that I put together from ordering on Amazon, commercial off the shelf stuff. When you see some of the stuff that UAPX is bringing to the table, it's top level equipment. We've got people that are building dark matter detectors.
Oh, wow.
That are part of UAPX, and this is not a joke. It is a serious organization with serious people and a serious mission to go out and run expeditions and try to understand what is going on.
Right. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. what they're doing. Do they plan on documenting that stuff and then sharing their expeditions with the public?
Yes.
In some way? Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. So we're still waiting on Michael. He did say he was about an hour to an hour and a half out. It's been a little over an hour. And so if you guys have any questions for Jeremy, feel free to drop them in the chat. Do you need to take a break or anything, Jeremy?
No, I'm good. I don't know if you wanted to bring up the report yet, or if you wanted to wait for Michael on that, or how you wanted to work this.
Well, we can. So you had a statement where you wanted to share some information firsthand. So I'll go ahead and let you talk about your thoughts, your initial thoughts on the report. Before you do that, real quick, just give me what your expectation was. I know you shared that on your YouTube channel, so you could just give me an abbreviated version of it.
No, I didn't expect anything. I honestly, the UAPTF report had more words in it. Let me rephrase what I'm saying, because I want to be very accurate. The unclassified executive summary that we were provided with, which was geared towards providing an overview to policymakers, it wasn't for us, had more words in it than I had anticipated. I thought it was going to be a 3 to 4 page document. It turned out to be, oh God, how many?
Nine pages.
Yeah. Right. So it was about twice as long, a little over twice as long as what I thought it was going to be, but the spacing was pretty grandiose. I didn't think there was going to be anything contextually relevant in this.
So what are your thoughts after reading it? Your initial thoughts?
I was right.
Why did you need 7 minutes to say that?
Because I want to explain to people why. Because the government is very, very apt at doublespeak. George Orwell, when he wrote 1984 back in 1948, he knew exactly what government doublespeak was, and we've just improved the thesaurus since then. The government can tell you that the sky is blue and make you believe it when the sky is actually dark gray. And it is the choice of the words, how they use the words, where they put the commas, and it makes all the difference in the world. And the reason I know this is because I am a tech writer for defense contractors that submit proposals to the government. This is what we do. We talk out of both sides of things 24/7, and we say one thing and it means something completely different. So I don't even know where to start, but
I pulled a couple of quotes, and this is where I wanted to get your take, and then get Michael's take on it. Let me just really quick check my notes real quick, because I don't want to get too far ahead of the conversation without Michael being here, but also I do want to get your initial insight on the report itself. And one thing that we can talk about before Michael gets here is this little guy right here. Oh no, sorry, wrong page.
That's the report.
Yeah, that's the first page. So talk about that page, Jen. That's really good, right? The date and the title. Can't argue with that. No, this dude right here.
Yeah. All right. So the memo from SecDef.
Yeah.
Or Deputy SecDef.
Talk about that, because I didn't have plans on talking about that.
Sure. So that memo is basically, and I've only read it once. So if I screw this up, don't hit me too hard, because I really didn't put too much thought into it. But that is a memo from the Deputy Secretary of Defense, if I'm not mistaken, that came out on the exact same day, just a few hours after the UAPTF preliminary report came out. And it was basically a statement by the Deputy Secretary of Defense giving a directive, an ultimatum, an order, so to speak, that is requiring all military personnel who see a UAP that interferes with a training exercise, they must report that within 2 weeks of the sighting. That is the meat of that. And then they go on and they say things about what the report they summarized the report and they summarized the findings of the report and things like that. But it was basically a policy shift, a very visual, very, very outspoken policy shift that is requiring all branches, all military service members who see a UAP incursion that affects a training program, that they must report that within 2 weeks. Now, that completely eliminates anything that is not training. If we're in a battle in Afghanistan and one of our F-15s, F-16s, or F-22s gets in a dogfight with a UAP, they don't have to report it.
Hmm.
It specifically says interferes with a training exercise or training event.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody and their brother is looking at that letter right now saying that this is amazing, because it's the first time, that we're removing the stigma, where that, it's directing the DOD to tell all the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and what do we call Space Force now? Guardians.
Yeah, I almost called them gladiators. That's not right. Guardians.
But it's directing all of our service personnel to report UAP sightings within 2 weeks, but it's specific to training events. Yeah. So, and we're fighting in, God, what, 22, 23 different countries, 24/7. So,
Jack Ryan says, if you want to, it's okay if you want to go into this real quick. What does the report say between the lines, Jeremy?
The report between the lines.
So when you said earlier, the way government writing works is that it's worded in a way that can be read in multiple perspectives. And I totally agree with you on that, 100%.
The report between the lines simply says, and you have to understand that while this was mandated by the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence, it was mandated by them. This was written for our enemies to read. So, because this was written for our enemies to read, this straight up says, hey, we don't think it was military technology, but maybe it was ours, maybe it wasn't, China, so you better watch your back. And if you don't mind, may I go into my whole breakdown?
Yeah. Because you did say you got some quotes off of some high profile people that have been saying some stuff. So
now
go ahead and get into that. Yeah.
So right off the bat, I'm going to tell people that this is going to piss some people off. I don't harbor any ill will against anybody directly.
So before you start, Jeremy, I just want to say this. Jeremy and I are friends. We have a lot in common, and we agree on a lot of things. There are some things that we don't agree on. So what he's about to say does not necessarily represent my own opinion, okay? So
it doesn't represent Andrew's opinion. It doesn't represent this podcast's opinion, and it sure as hell doesn't represent the opinion of UAPX. This is mine and mine alone.
The reason I like to hear Jeremy's perspective is because he does come from it at a different perspective than I do at times. And there have been times where he's changed my opinion on things. There have been times where I said, okay, you got your opinion, and you could keep your opinion, but we're still friends. We don't have to agree on everything.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
And this is just an illustration of how people can communicate effectively and still disagree on something. I don't even know if I disagree with you yet.
No, you probably will. Okay, Let me first start off by saying that I spent 5 days at Lou Elizondo's house, and he treated me with respect. He treated me well, and I think he's a cool cat. But that does not mean that when I think he's wrong, that I'm not going to take him to task for it. So I know you were asking me about the UAPTF report, but before I get into that, actually, while I get into that, I want to start by breaking down a quote that Lou had within the last 24 hours in the New York Post, which was talking about the UAPTF report, because in my opinion, it was straight up wrong. So because I personally feel that this quote of Lou's is an embodiment of the overall problem that I have with what's happening in the world of UAP right now, that this idea that the US government is providing some kind of salvation and validation, and that we need to support the government in the government search for information. And I think that's utter crap, because like I said earlier, it doesn't matter what the government collects. They're going to compartmentalize it and they're going to shove it in a black hole, and we're never going to see it because of the classification. So why should we support them? We should go out and get the data ourselves. But Lou's quote 24 hours ago in the New York Post is this. He says, "This preliminary report from the UAP task force is the first of many to come. The American people now know a small portion of what I and my colleagues in the Pentagon have been privy to, that these UAP are not secret US technology, that they do not seem to belong to any known allies or adversaries, and that our intelligence services have yet to identify a terrestrial explanation for these extraordinary vehicles. Out of 144 incidents, the task force was only able to identify one." Now again, that was just in the past 24 hours in the New York Post. And I'm sorry, but it's wrong. So
what specifically, what part?
Well, all of it, basically. In my opinion, first, we, the American people, we collectively knew much, much more about UAP than what was in this report. The report only went backwards, 20 years? Mm-hmm. And basically set us back 20 years, in my opinion. We've been
actually technically, I think the report only went back, was talking about reports that were done in the last 2 to 3 years. The majority of the reporting done was in the last 2 or 3 years.
Even worse.
Yeah.
We've been looking at this stuff with a history of at least 70 years, and some of us have been looking at this evidence that's been contained in ancient history. The report only spanned, like you said, the last 2 years, and it only looked at 144 cases. How is that even close to, as Lou said, knowing a small portion of what he and his colleagues have been privy to? I mean, that statement just doesn't add up, because we've already known more than what was in the report. Now, continuing on, Lou claims that the report states, in his words, quoted in the New York Post, that these UAP are not secret U.S. technology, and they do not seem to belong to any known allies or adversaries, and that our intelligence services have yet to identify a terrestrial explanation for these extraordinary vehicles. Man, there is just so much wrong with that portion of the quote that I could spend an hour breaking it down. Is that me or you?
That's my phone, man. Sorry.
Ah.
My mom's calling me.
I could spend an hour breaking down what's wrong with this, but we only have a few minutes. So let me give you the highlights here. First, Lou claims that the report proves it's not technology, right? It's not U.S. technology. So let's take a look at the report itself. The executive summary, which is the single most important part of the report, clearly states that UAP could be, and I'm reading directly from the report here, UAP could be the result of sensor errors, spoofing, or observer misperception, and require additional rigorous analysis. That does not mean they are not secret U.S. technology. It leaves the door wide open for many of them to be us, right? Lou is, in my opinion, disingenuous here and very misleading. Then take a look at page 5 of the report. It clearly states that when UAP incidents are resolved, they will fall into one of 5 potential explanatory categories, one of which is, and I quote, USG or industry developmental programs. I mean, that right there is saying that this is potentially secret U.S. tech. I'm curious if Lou actually read the report before he put this statement out. Lou's quote again was that these UAP are not secret U.S. technology. I don't see that anywhere in the report, and as a matter of fact, the report states the potential for the exact opposite.
So, time out real quick, because
Yeah.
there was an additional sentence to that paragraph that you just read. We were unable to confirm, however, that these systems accounted for any of the UAP reports we collected.
Which is a nonsensical sentence.
But it's saying that we were unable to confirm that this was an explanation of the reports that we're talking about in this.
Right. If you can't confirm it, you can also not deny it, leaving, therefore, open the possibility.
Okay. I just want to put that caveat in there because that's the complete paragraph.
Yeah, no, you're
without that
absolutely
second
right.
sentence.
But it's still
what you're saying is 100% true. But with that second second sentence, it's like you said, man, it's double speak.
it absolutely
saying one thing, but then it's negating that. And if
right.
you take
But what
any
I'm saying is that
part of it out of context, it doesn't work.
Lou is being definitive. He's saying that the report says it's not U.S. technology. The report does not say it is not U.S. technology. The report leaves it completely open for it to be U.S. technology.
Copy that.
Now, going on, I could go on for a very long time about how this quote is extremely misleading, especially if this was meant for the public at large, because the United States public takes sound bites as fact without research.
Yep.
I'm
100%.
guessing probably 95% of the people who read the New York Post article will read Lou's quotes, they'll believe it, and they will never look at the actual UAPTF report. And I'm pretty sure that Lou knows that. And that's what concerns me the most, because this is a narrative that doesn't follow the facts. You look at page 4 of the report. The report states, and I quote, "We were able to identify one reported UAP with high confidence. In that case, we identified the object as a large deflating balloon." Well, this is divergent a little bit, but I have a personal suspicion. This is just my personal suspicion. And I suspect that the grainy blob video from Jeremy Corbell, where everyone was claiming was a transmedium craft, is actually this UAP report. This is my belief. So I submitted a FOIA to get that data. It was sent in yesterday, and I hope to probably get a delivery receipt on it by this Monday and start the 20-day countdown to a response. And to clarify,
so yeah, I just want to be clear that is speculative.
This is speculative. Yes,
there's no proof, no evidence. You have no insider
yet.
Info on that. You're
yet.
Seeking
this is
prove your
just
hypothesis.
my personal theory. Nobody's given me the idea. Nobody's pointed me in this direction.
I will say that the first thing that popped into my head when I read that sentence was exactly that thought, because it's what it looks like. It's coming down slowly.
Well, that and the fact that Corbell said that the video is being included in the UAPTF report himself.
Ah, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
so now let me clarify something. My goal here is it's not to be a debunker. My goal here is to help people see the BS. It's to cut through the lies and the fakes and to be able to focus on truly unidentified and not of this earth craft, because not everything is a UAP and not everything isn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this brings me back to something else that Lou said in his quote. He said, and again, I'm quoting, "Out of 144 incidents, the task force was only able to identify one." But this is not true. This is not factually accurate. The report itself makes it very clear that the United States government ranks their identification in grades of confidence. Grades of confidence. This is standard operating procedure, much like facial recognition would say, "Hey, I've got an 83% match of this photo being Frank Smith," right? The United States government uses similar percentage scores to identify targets. Lou should know this. I mean, he was special operations and counterintelligence, and I'd probably bet my paycheck he's even radioed in a few times that he's got eyes on target with a percentage of confirmation. I mean, that was his job. But yet he says that they were only able to identify one report, when the report actually says, and I'm quoting here, "We were able to identify one reported UAP with high confidence." In that case, we identified the object as a large deflating balloon. High confidence, that key term, high confidence, is the key here. You can absolutely bet. You can bet that the UAPTF identified multiples of these 144 incidents with varying degrees of confidence. And I'm sure Lou knows this, which makes his quote to me even more disingenuous and misleading.
Okay, but time out right there, because again, you left off a sentence that's pretty informative. If you include that sentence, it changes the context of what you were saying. So
Okay.
read that last sentence, or I'll read it if you don't have it.
No, go ahead.
The others remain unexplained. So out of the 144, one is identified. The others are unexplained.
Is that from the report or is that from Lou's quote?
No, I'm reading it off the report right here.
Okay, let me bring that up.
Page 4, second paragraph, last sentence. Or you know what? I could just pop it up on, I could share the screen.
Page 4, second paragraph.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, the others remain unexplained. Okay, so when you have high confidence, you're accepting the explanation. When you have medium or low confidence, you cannot confirm an explanation. It remains unexplained because there's no confirmation to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't say, my guess, my supposition, my personal belief here is that out of the 144, you're looking at a confidence spectrum.
Okay.
Number 144, we have a high degree of expectation that this was a balloon. Number 143, we have a slightly lower degree of confirmation that this is probably a Cessna 172. Number 142 is even lower, and so on and so on. But we can't explain, we can't give a definitive answer. As a matter of fact, they didn't even give a definitive answer on the balloon. They just simply said high confidence.
Yeah, I mean, without their confirmation of that hypothesis, you have to keep digging to prove your point. And I agree with what you're saying. They did leave some stuff out. They left a whole lot of stuff out.
But my problem isn't with the report. It's with what people are saying about the report. Because what they're saying about the report is not factually accurate. It is leading people into a direction that is not what the report is saying. The report, and I'm not saying that the report didn't identify the other ones. I'm simply saying that the report is very vague, and you cannot make concrete statements about a report that does not make concrete statements.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's why I keep going back to, shoot, I just got lost. So,
and going back to, okay, so the unidentified celebrity review here is saying, not everything is a UAP and not everything isn't. Isn't that what the report is saying? The report is simply saying there's something out there, but it is not. Okay, so the report, first off, is talking about aerial clutter. It's talking about misidentified aircraft. It is talking about possible secret U.S. tech. It is talking about possible breakthrough technology and even foreign adversarial technology. And then anything else outside of those is lumped into the category of others. So others could be UAP. It could be, in the traditional sense of things, aliens or ultra-terrestrials or extraterrestrials or whatever happens to be, conscious manifestations. All of that falls into the bin of other.
Could be Santa Claus and Seven Dwarfs.
Exactly. You cannot make any solid assumptions on anything whatsoever from a report that makes no solid determinations on anything. So when Lou Elizondo stands up and he says the report definitively says that this is not U.S. technology, that is factually incorrect. And excuse me for one moment here because my daughter is standing right in front of me and having a spaz attack.
Cool. Go for it.
I am live talking to the entire world right now, sweetheart. What is up?
You can mute. Go ahead and mute, Jeremy.
Okay, stand by.
I'll do a little song or something for these guys. I'll just go through and check some of the questions in here. So it looks like Jack Hetfield has quite a few things to say. I'm not going to read through all those. But yeah.
I'm sorry,
Luis,
I'm back.
Yeah. Luis, not everything is UAP and not everything isn't a UAP.
Yes, not everything is a UAP and not everything isn't.
Isn't
But
that
that
what the
my beef isn't with the report. It is with how people are interpreting the report. And again, you cannot make definitive claims that this is not US tech when the report itself has 5 categories, one of them being US tech.
Okay. So move on, because you said you had a couple more points you wanted to make.
I mean, let me bring up the report here.
Well, I thought you said there was a couple of quotes that you wanted to address.
Well, that's the primary one. The other ones are. So there's a lot of people that are pinging me saying that, what is this one line in the report? It's on page 5. It's the 3rd paragraph on page 5, and it's the last line of the 3rd paragraph on page 5. Saying military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings.
Hold up. I want to find that.
You just passed it.
Which paragraph is it?
Go back up. Right there. The one that's highlighted.
In a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy?
Yeah.
That's it? That's the one?
That's the one, yeah.
Okay, and I wanted to wait on that because I highlighted some stuff that I wanted to get both you guys input on. So let me just check on Michael and see. Looks like he's here, and he's logging in. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Let's bring something up here for a second.
Okay.
Jack Hetfield put in the chat here that the unidentified celebrity review talked smack about me and called me.
No, we're not going to do that, Jeremy. We're not going to that. Sorry, Jack. We're not going to turn this into a pissing match. It's just going to be, we're talking about the UAPTF report. We're not talking about a dispute between Luis and Jeremy. As far as I know, they don't have one, and I'm going to leave it at that. You cool with that, Jeremy?
Well, I never saw it because I don't watch it. So anyway.
Neither did I. I didn't see it. I don't know what he's talking about, but we're not even going to talk about it. Because that kind of nonsense just doesn't need to be talked about.
Yeah. So in this statement, no, that's fine. That's fine. In this statement, the radio frequency process, and I'd like to see what Michael has to say about this if he makes it in.
Yeah, I do too. That's one of the more interesting things that I think was in the report, and I really want to dig into that comment there. Is there anything else you want to skip over and talk about real quick? We'll come back to that piece.
Well, I think it's very, very interesting and very, very telling that if you go back through recent history, you've got Susan Goff that is saying that the UAPTF never studied UFOs. And then you've got Lou Elizondo saying that, I'm sorry, Susan Goff saying ATIP never studied UFOs. It wasn't the task of ATIP. And then you've got Lou Elizondo saying that that was exactly the task of ATIP. And then you've got the UAPTF, who everybody in the world was assuming was looking for alien spacecraft. Didn't mention that once. And as a matter of fact, they did everything they could to avoid mentioning that, including creating 5 separate categories: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomenon, secret U.S. tech, which, again, Lou said it proves that it wasn't the tech, but the report right here clearly says it could possibly be secret U.S. tech, foreign adversary systems, which also in Lou's quote was saying that the report made it clear that it wasn't, but it's right here on page 5 saying some UAP may be technologies deployed by China, Russia, another nation, or non-governmental entity. I don't know how Lou can say that the report clearly says it wasn't that when the report clearly said the exact opposite. And then the last category of other. It boggles my mind why a task force that everybody in the world is looking at saying that everybody looks at the UAPTF task force, the UAP task force, as an entity that is providing disclosure on UFOs, that is going to be able to give us the answers that we've been seeking for 70 years. They don't even have the balls to say that these could be off-world craft. Lou Elizondo has said that the government says that, off-world craft exist. Hell, we may even have crashed metamaterials from off-world created craft. But the agency that everybody looks at doesn't even have the ability to say something that even hints at that possibility. And that to me is extremely telling, extremely telling.
So I just wanted to reiterate what you said about the UAPTF is kind of being misconstrued by the UFO community or the greater public as a disclosure.
It backs up it
organization.
To me, and I don't want this to happen, but it did in my mind. This bolsters what Susan Goff said, that ATIP wasn't studying UFOs. Because the agency that was taken up and created after ATIP, and everybody thought it was supposed to be studying UFOs, isn't studying UFOs. Not in the traditional sense, not in the UFO Twitter sense. Obviously, they're studying unidentified aerial phenomena, but they're doing everything they can to make unidentified aerial phenomenon everything except extraterrestrial. They are going to extreme lengths to avoid calling these things extraterrestrial.
Yeah, that is absolutely apparent. Jeremy, go ahead and talk for a few minutes. I'm going to try to help Michael get logged in.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, we're talking about this report looking at things like airborne clutter, and they're right off the bat. I mean, they invoke Mick West without invoking Mick West. They say birds and balloons, which is two of Mick's favorite things. I mean, this right here, if anybody thinks that this report advanced the idea of disclosure or advanced the idea of ufology or gave us a leg up, I think it set us back. Because right off the bat, you look at a box of cereal, and on a box of cereal it lists the ingredients in the order of their prevalency. If sugar is the very first thing on the box of cereal, that's the highest level of ingredient. Right off the bat, the UAPTF report is saying birds and balloons. And the very last thing that they're talking about is other. And they don't even go into definition of what other is. Just that objects in this category pending scientific advances that allow us to better understand them. I mean, that is
and again that right there, you could look at it two different ways. And you could look at it from an optimistic perspective, which is the way that I was looking at the whole report as a whole. And I got in trouble with a bunch of people. I pissed a bunch of people off because I was being so optimistic about the report. And I was posting my thoughts as I was reading the report on Twitter. I got unfollowed by a couple of dozen people and blocked by a few people. That shocked me. That's how divisive this report is, in my opinion. But what you're saying is that right there without further advancement in scientific studies, and I can't. I'm going off memory. I can't remember the whole thing. I thought that was a pretty cool statement. Like they're saying we need further development and study to understand what these things are, what
Well,
the
it's the
other
exact same
category
thing that
is.
Bob Lazar says. Every 10 years, we pull a hunk of junk out of Area 51 and we look at it and we look at our current technology and say, do we have the capability of understanding this yet? Nope. Put it back in the box and sit on it for another 10 years. That's what that says.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if what Lazar is saying is true or false, but it's certainly an interesting story that he has to share.
I mean,
But he's not the topic, man.
Again, I don't have a problem with the report. The report is what the report is. And Lou is correct when he says that this is the first of many to come. This is literally titled the preliminary assessment. This is not the final assessment or the ultimate assessment. It is the preliminary assessment. We should expect more. The rest are not mandated. This is the preliminary. We may or may not get some. But in the preliminary report, there is no definitive. There is nothing definitive that says this is not U.S. tech. There is nothing definitive that says this is not foreign adversarial tech. There is nothing definitive that says this is extraterrestrial tech. So nobody, I don't care what side you're on, you cannot make a definitive claim based on this report.
Yeah.
And yes, the unidentified celebrity review says, what about the letter from the Deputy Secretary of Defense that was sent out after the report came out? Seems like a development in a positive direction. Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and it is a development in a positive direction. But again, you got to read the wording on this. The Deputy Sec Def made a policy directive that all soldiers, sailors, airmen, and guardians must report within 2 weeks of sighting any UAP that interfere in a military training event. Training event. Like I said earlier, if we're fighting a war in Afghanistan, if we're dropping bombs on somebody, if we're defending our home territory from something, that is not a training event. That is a real world exercise. And we fly more of those every day than we do training events. And that is completely and totally accepted from this policy.
Oh, man. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I'm chatting with Michael right now, and he's having a really hard time getting into the chat room. So,
and yeah, John, you're absolutely right. Wording is, well, confusing, and it's confusing deliberately. We're not.
Yes, and that point, Jeremy and I do 100% agree. This is why I looked at it as an optimistic, as a positive report, because it exceeded my expectations. He looked at it as like nothing new. There's no new information in there, because the way that wording is, and that's what I have an issue with. That's why I feel like that this report was intentionally written this way to divide this community, to confuse people. Like, what are we supposed to think now that this thing is out and nobody can even agree on it? And it's also like Jeremy was saying, that was a very good point, and I had not thought of that this part of the report was written for the enemies of the United States.
Yes, this was not written for us. This was not, even though it was mandated by the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence, it was not written for them. This unclassified overview, this preliminary assessment, was written knowing that the FSB, the People's Republic of whatever, China, our foreign adversaries are going to be reading this and digesting every single comma placement and word emphasis in this, because they want to see what we're telling our own people. So we wrote this for our enemies, and our enemies are going to read this and realize that we are not confirming nor denying that we have some severely advanced aircraft out there that are ready to kick their butt should they wave their sabers. That's what this report is telling them.
Yeah. One of the coolest arguments that I saw that this is not foreign tech was that basically, why would China spend millions and probably billions on stealing U.S. tech if they have this kind of superior tech to our technology? Why would they steal our
So,
inferior technology if they
so
had
here's the
that
thing.
stuff, right?
China does something different. They beat us with numbers. They don't beat us with performance specs. They don't beat us with faster, better, silenter, more capable. They beat us with sheer numbers. Where we would take something like the RQ-170, which is a stealth, unmanned aerial system, weaponized aerial system. It looks like the B-2 bomber, pretty much completely, totally dependent on AI, pilotless. It goes and does its own missions. It comes back, very little human input. China's not going to have that, because we're going to put in every single sensor payload, every single packet, every single type of weapons platform that we can fit on it. We're going to put the best engines. We're going to put just the top of the line, everything went into the RQ-170. Now, what China's going to do is, instead of building one of these drones for $20 billion, they're going to build 200,000 piece of shit drones that each one of those has a different sensor stack in it. 10 of them are going to have optical sensors, 10 of them are going to have RF sensors, 10 of them are going to have magnetic sensors, 10 of them are going to be weaponized, and they're going to swarm, and they're going to all perform at the same time for cheaper, because you can't defeat them all by shooting one missile and knocking one out. So China doesn't have to depend on stealing US tech and building the same things or improving better things. They simply build more of
Agreed.
cheaper, crappier things, and they beat us by numbers.
Okay, here we go, man. Michael is in the stream. So, hey, how are you, Michael?
I guess we're there.
Yeah. Let me let people see you for a second. And Jeremy,
Hi.
this is Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Jeremy.
Hey,
Hi.
Chase Klotsky wanted me to tell you that you are one of her favorite people.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
So, if you don't mind, Michael, I'll just do a real quick intro that I wrote for you.
Sure.
And then we'll go back to talking about this UAPTF report.
Right.
So Michael is an aviation historian and a private pilot, and he's been studying the UFO topic for decades. His interest in this topic and pursuit of the truth have enabled him to capture one of the most in-depth and detailed collections of UFO accounts available in one place. By studying over 50,000 cases and choosing the best of the best, Michael has amassed a wealth of information with which he presents alongside dozens of beautifully rendered images representing these cases in his book titled Dark Files. I was recently introduced to Michael's research by a friend of the show, Jack Ryan, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm relatively new to the topic of UFOs, and it's extremely helpful and encouraging that kind of feedback and support for the show. Thank you for that, Jack. And with that, let's talk about the UAPTF report. And Michael, if you don't mind, I would like to have you back on to talk about your work exclusively.
Sure. Yeah.
At some point in the future. But welcome to Dead Hand Radio, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. So do you? You don't have to make it a long story, but
right,
you were on the road for like two hours or something to get to this.
LA traffic,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So like most of everybody, I think everyone's read the report by now. And after 75 years, we get a 9-page PDF report. That's all we get. Few things I think they missed, right? They talked about a lack of data, but we've got over thousands of USO reports over the last 100 years. They didn't include any USO reports. That's number one.
Good point.
They also said they had inconclusive reports so that they could formulate a proper, assessment. Well, that's not true, because you've got Gordon Cooper, astronaut military pilot report. And not only that, the government themselves has the motion picture film reel from 1957, where a craft landed at Edwards Air Force Base, and they themselves have the motion picture film reel. So they can't tell us that it's a lack of data. And they missed all 119 crash retrieval cases from Leonard Stringfield. So they can't tell us they have a lack of data.
One other point to pile on, because Jeremy was going at it pretty good for the last half hour or so. But I saw Robert Salas post in response to the UAPTF report, and this really swayed me quite a bit. He basically said they didn't, not a single mention of the interaction with nukes. They left out the nukes completely.
Right.
And I was like, wow, that's so true. But then I heard a rebuttal to that, which made a lot of sense. Why would they put that in the public report? You know, any mention of nukes.
There was one thing in the report, and Michael, I want to get your opinion on this as well.
Mhm.
On page 4, when they're talking about UAP collection challenges, the second bullet statement says the sensors mounted on U.S. military platforms are typically designed to fulfill specific missions. As a result, those sensors are not generally suited for identifying UAP.
Jeremy, let me pull that up so everybody can read it. Where is that exactly?
Page 4, go up. It's the yellow box on page 4.
Oh, this thing right here.
The second bullet statement right there. The sensors mounted on U.S. military platforms are typically designed to fulfill specific missions. As a result, those sensors are not generally suited for identifying UAP. I will tell you right now, I have written multiple documents that talk about disparate sensors. Disparate. I mean, we're talking optical, RF, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They have 3 primary goals: identification, acquisition, and targeting. That's what they do. For this report to say that they were not generally suited for identifying UAP, until you identify a foreign aircraft, it's an unidentified aircraft. Our sensors are literally designed to identify the unidentified.
Go ahead and give Michael a chance to respond to that, Jeremy.
No, that's okay. I would just bring up the point that Wendell Stevens talked about in the late 1940s when the B-29s filled with cameras, recording equipment, radio receivers. They were flying over the Arctic regions, and they had dish-shaped craft. They got it all on film, coming off from the ice and then tucking in behind the trailing edge of the main wing and ahead of the leading edge of the horizontal stabilizer while all the cameras were rolling, and they got it all on film. So that they can't tell us that they don't have the data. They've got it.
I mean, that statement on the report is crap.
So, okay, so Michael, with what you just said, my mind is kind of blown. But first of all, that report would be 60, almost 70 years old. Like it's 70 years old, right?
They're missing out on 75 years of this phenomenon.
How would that be any kind of threat to national security if they were to release that footage?
They should release it.
The data collection from that era was not advanced enough to like hurt our national security, was it?
Difficult to say, but it's happened on more than one occasion. They've got warehouses full of this. You know they do. 8x10 black and white glossies. They've got the motion picture film reels. They got the gun camera footage. Everything that Wendell Stevens had talked about. This went on for decades. Vietnam cases, World War II cases. I know there's cases from the Gulf War that they have. There is not a lack of data. That's completely wrong. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So
yeah, and Andrew, it's not what they found that wouldn't be against national security now. It's the processes by which they went through to find it that would still be classified.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me real quickly. I had a little statement that I wrote about the report. You kind of gave your initial assessment, Jeremy. Michael, do you feel satisfied with your initial assessment?
Yeah, I think so. So. Mm-hmm.
So mine is basically, I had to write it so I could read it. And sorry for the fireworks going off outside. The UAPTF report came out on June 25th, 2021, and it instantly became a focus of everyone's attention. People were anticipating this report for months. Many were skeptical that anything of substance would be included. Some were hoping for the ultimate disclosure, though not many people actually stated that publicly. And that's true. I did hear people, make some statements about what they were hoping for. I tried to maintain a conservative outlook while anticipating the report, hoping for the best, but also fearing that it might turn into a repeat of the Condon report or absolute denial. So that was really my expectation. I was really tempering my expectations. That said, when I got the report and downloaded it, the website was unavailable temporarily. So it was obviously a mass of people mad rushing to download it, probably crashed their website temporarily, because that was reported by a few other people as well. And then once I got the report, as I read through it, I shared some of my initial observations on Twitter and quickly realized that not everyone was as optimistic about the report as I was. And in my enthusiasm, sharing that on Twitter, I pissed a lot of people off. And I didn't even, it's not because I was trying to preach. I was just, this was my impression, my initial impression. I put that out there, and people unfollowed me. Several people blocked me on Twitter. So as Jeremy and I were talking, and then as I've been processing this for the last 24 hours, I feel like this report was written intentionally confusing and divisive.
Of course.
I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Government is not needed on a united people.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Michael.
Lacking in every regard.
The report is lacking?
It's lacking. It's ambiguous. I don't think it's true. It doesn't represent the true historical legacy of this phenomenon. I think they're missing out on so much. They're trying to rebrand it. They did the same thing with the Condon report, where they didn't include any USO reports. And we know the U.S. Navy has all of that. And you can check that with the Ivan T. Sanderson collection in his book, Invisible Residents. There's dozens and dozens of U.S. Navy USO reports. None of those are in this report. So it's a whitewash.
Yep.
Was there anything in this report? Like I said, I saw the report as mostly a positive thing, because my expectations were like complete denial. And when I didn't see complete denial, I thought, okay, this is okay. They're not saying anything substantial, but they're not denying it. They're actually saying that there are UFOs in the skies, and we don't know what they are. Was there anything that you saw, Jeremy? I already asked you. You said it was kind of there was nothing in the report that you consider positive.
The standardization, their process to develop a standardized way of collecting the data, I think that's a net positive for them, but it's not going to do anything for us.
And Michael, any positives, any pros in
I honestly don't see any pros. It just looks like they're going to continue to kick the can down the road. That's the mandate here, and just keep on dragging it out for who knows how long. But that doesn't change what history we have. That doesn't change the historical cases. Not at all. Those won't go away.
That's why your work is so important, because you document those cases. Those cases are still available for the public to view.
True.
But you put them out in a format where it's easily accessible to anybody that wants to see it. So, and you guys have already shared the cons. So I don't want you guys to beat me up anymore, man. Obviously, I was too optimistic. I must have been naive about the report. But for the next phase of this process, okay, they say that they're going to continue this. They stood up the UAPTF as a permanent established or division, and they're going to continue the reporting. They're going to continue not only the reporting from the military aspect, but the reporting to the public or to Congress. What are your hopes and what are your expectations for the next phase or the next step? Michael, go ahead and start on this.
Personally, I don't hold out any hope that we're going to get anywhere this route. The way they're trickling things down decade after decade, it's going to require something that Gordon Cooper talked about. Astronaut Gordon Cooper said that the only way that we're going to make any headway in this field is if the actual hard physical evidence is handed over to the scientific community and they investigate that and release it as a united coalition. That's the only way. It's the only way, according to Gordon Cooper.
So an international coalition?
An international coalition of united scientists that come together completely, real-time internet, instant, all around the world, no backhanded channels, no secret, just everything gets released in real time, honest, independent verification all the way, blind tests all the way. and just a real truthful release. I don't think we're going to get it, but even Gordon Cooper, astronaut Gordon Cooper and military pilot, that's what he felt. That's what he thought would be the best route forward.
That's a great sentiment. Jeremy, what do you think needs to happen to actually do something like that?
Well, you know, when you have a kid, and let's say your kid's 4 years old, and they continue to have some sort of bad behavior because they're seeking attention, you ignore that child. What we need to do is we need to quit looking at the United States government. We need
Yeah,
to ignore them,
that's right.
and we need to just let them play their silly little game while we go out and we get our own data. Right now, today, we have the ability to acquire electronics and sensor tech from Amazon and Alibaba that were the absolute height of the game 10, 15 years ago. 10, 15 years ago, the United States government was collecting all this information that they left out of the report. So now we have the same technology. Let's use it and forget that the U.S. government is even researching this.
That's a good point, man. And that's what Jeremy, if you don't know, Michael, Jeremy is the creator of the Osiris platform,
Okay.
or the Osiris vehicle. It's a mobile UAPTF or UAP tracking vehicle. So I understand what Jeremy. Go ahead and explain to him about the a little bit about the Sky Hub and the Osiris. Everybody else knows about it, but I want to make sure if you haven't heard about it, Michael, if you have some idea what it's
the 30-second elevator pitch is that I took a 22-year-old Land Rover and I incorporated disparate sensor platforms in it, a Sky Hub, which uses AI and machine learning to identify, track, categorize, and classify aerial targets in the air. I bounce that off of ADS-B and weather information, and I collect every type of data from magnetic anomalies with magnetometers to radio frequency interference and everything in real time with atomically stamped time and date from the GPS, so that I know exactly what is happening in the environment around me if I'm tracking something that is anomalous in the air. But I also have the ability to see what is happening in the air around my vehicle and try to cross-reference that with like known flight paths or known flight patterns, and to try to lessen the amount of noise. And maybe I'm getting confused that that's actually a helicopter. Well, my ADS-B or my MLAT receivers are going to tell me if that's a helicopter out there, and then I can remove that from the data set.
Okay.
So that's Jeremy's plan, to go out there and basically grassroots the effort of collecting the data and forcing the government's hand. Do you have any plans to continue? I mean, I know you're going to continue with your research and your presentations. Those are great, informative ways to educate the public. What is your long-term plan to kind of put some pressure on the government?
Well, as it's been said before, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And without the actual physical evidence, how far can we get as civilians, right? I mean, we can make some progress, but it's really going to take that physical evidence. And if they have recovered craft, which we believe they do, then they are holding the cards, right? They are holding the cards. Now, maybe we can get some, but it's not going to be an easy road. It won't be an easy road. Like if Kingman is true, if Aztec is true, if Cape Girardeau is true, if the crash that was recovered and was taken from 3 hours from Cherry Point, North Carolina, if that craft is true, they've got at least a half dozen, probably many more. Now, the number's been pitched around many times before, like maybe between a dozen and 2 dozen max, but we don't know. That's like 40-year-old data now. They could have more than that. So at the very least, it's a dozen. It's a dozen at the very least.
So according to Gordon Cooper, if all the world governments collectively brought their stuff forward, it's the same thing with eliminating nuclear nuclear weapons. If they were going to get rid of nuclear weapons, they would all have to disarm everything at the same time.
Right.
So to get all the all the governments of the world to release their information, I mean, is it
It's going to be
even
hard. It's going to be
Yeah,
hard. Yeah.
yeah, that's a tough one. But I mean, guys like you have been out there beating the drum for decades, and we're at this point now. And here's another point where I want to bring up what Luis has been doing with the big phone home. I mean, that was a great grassroots effort to kind of galvanize everybody to call their Congress members.
Mhm.
I think that had some weight in whether it had anything to do with this report coming out or not. It still had some weight in the minds of Congress that people are looking and they're interested. They want to know more. Um, is there anything that can be added to that kind of effort and to what you're doing to kind of just like, I don't know, beef up this process and maybe try
Yeah.
to expedite it in any way?
It's going to require nothing less than the actual craft and the alleged bodies, right? I mean, to really move this forward, it's going to take nothing less than that, because the general public won't take anything less than that. I mean, to me, it's a strange dichotomy. It's a strange situation. Here you've got the most popular movies in the world, Avatar, Close Encounters. There's millions of fans, and ticket sales are in the billions, and science fiction is just incredible. But when you get down to the actual historical craft and actual witness sightings, it's nothing but crickets. It's crickets. Like, people are not interested in the real story. They're interested in science fiction movies and TV
So
shows.
now this is one part where I will push back, because my dad, okay, he's a retired police officer, 30 years on the department, over 30 years on the department, has never had an interest in UFOs.
Yeah.
Never even wanted to talk about it.
Right.
The last couple of years I've been talking to him about it, just a little bit at a time. When this UAPTF report came out, he sent me a text message and told me that it was out. I mean, I already knew that it was coming out, but for him to actually initiate a conversation or a text message about it, that's huge.
That goes back to the old saying, people won't believe it until they see it on TV.
Well, that's very true, but you have to look at this. Your dad is a very, very, very statistically insignificant number when it comes to 8 billion people on this planet.
Right.
And, the United States government, and pretty much every government that is smart, is looking at the idea of disclosure through the idea of probability theory, and they're applying the law of large numbers to this. And if anybody is related in insurance in any way, the law of large number basically, God, how do I summarize this? It's basically saying that if you repeat an experiment with a large number of people, you can surmise that the result will be the same as if it was applied to all people, right? So 2 or 3 people, which is UFO Twitter. I mean, there are tens of thousands of us, but statistically, we are 2 or 3 people out of 8 billion on this planet.
Right.
We mean absolutely nothing to the disclosure effort.
Yes.
We could have 5,000 people call every single day to Congress, but Congress is beholden to the military, because the military is the one that holds the secrets, and Congress isn't going to sway the idea or isn't going to motivate the military unless they start withholding funding. But then they're going to come back and they're going to look at this and say, well, if we tell the 5,000 people that want this, we're also telling the 375 million people that don't want this, and we're also telling the other 8 billion people on the planet that haven't asked for this. So we're not going to do it.
That's a good line of thinking. That's really logical to me. Yes.
Okay, but you brought up a thought in my mind, and that is the next step that's coming next is this IG investigation, or this IG review of what the DoD has been doing in regards to this UAPTF. What is your expectation? What is your hope? Is that gonna bring any more pressure to bear on the DoD to release more information? what is, or is that just somebody playing games with the public perspective? Michael, what do you think?
Difficult to say. I would just keep on referring back to our military pilots. It's just the best thing I can fall back on. You know, they continue to talk about military involvement, and they're only interested in military witnesses, the sensors, the radar. Then why don't they talk to the military pilots, Air Force pilots, cosmonauts, astronauts? They're missing so many other things. Gordon Cooper's testimony is there. He flew after these things in 1951 at his West German base. His wingman was with him, and it was the meteorologist that told the squadron that dozens of these things were flying over on 2 consecutive weekends. So the meteorologist knew. They know about this. They know about it.
So
there's no denying it.
You feel like the IG review is not really going to help move the needle in any way for the public?
I still think we need the physical evidence. The public, the scientific community will not believe it until it's released real time on the internet, bodies and craft. Anything less, no one's going to believe it. They're going to be thirsting for a bloodlust. This is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
People want to see the real physical evidence. We've been played for 80 years, and the only way it's going to stop is if they bring out, and it has to be verified. How do we know it's real? How do we know it's not a hoax? That's where the other scientists have to come in.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very slippery slope. It won't be easy.
So the talk about public hearings has come up repeatedly. You know,
right.
that this could potentially lead to public hearings, and even a few Congress members have said that, you know, we want to eventually get public hearings. Is that a good thing? I mean, could that actually move the needle? I keep using that term, but that's the only kind of way I can look at it. Because like right now, I feel like we're sitting on empty, you know, and we need to fill up the tank a little bit at a time. The IG review is a little bit. The public hearings could be a little bit. What do you guys think?
I don't think it can hurt. I don't think it can hurt. I think it can help, but I question whether or not the Senate Arm and Services Committee have a need to know. I don't even know if they have a need to know.
We had public hearings back in, I think it was 1973, during the heyday of Operation Mockingbird. The director of the CIA was called up in front of Congress. It was televised, and they asked him a series of very pointed questions about Operation Mockingbird and if the CIA was using journalists to influence thought. His answer, more than 80% of the time, is, I respectfully decline to answer that, and I request a private conversation behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think for a moment that public hearings on something that remains in the TSSCI classification level will do any good.
Well said. Well said.
I mean, it's impossible to argue with that, because they do have that loophole that they can fall back on. Now, I mean, barring a change in the law that requires them to answer under oath in the public, is there anything that could be done? I mean, I don't think a law is going to get passed. Basically, it's too
buried. It's just way too buried. It's too buried.
I mean,
we're talking about the crown jewels here, and they're not going to release the crown jewels.
Right. Well, they can't. Even let's get rid of the idea of national security issues and political. They can't, because of liability. If they come out tomorrow and say that we have been holding a dozen or one or half of one crashed alien craft, which has all of this magical technology that could have provided free energy, could have saved my grandfather from cancer, and could have prevented the deforestation of the Amazonian rainforest, heads are going to roll.
Yeah.
They can't put it out unless we have an Edward Snowden type of person that steals it and brings it out and parades it around in front of the entire world,
Mhm.
we will never see that tech in our lifetime under released disclosure from the United States government.
So just for clarification, we are not suggesting that. We're not condoning that. We do not want somebody to do that. But if somebody does that, uh, there's going to be a lot of people that would appreciate it. That I could say. But we're not condoning that. That's a serious breach of national security, and somebody would
And
go to
I
jail for a
also,
long time.
I was in the military. I swore an oath. I have the flag right here, right? This is my picture of my basic training class behind me. I will stand up and support and defend the Constitution of the United States just like I did when I was in uniform. But I swear to God, the crap that comes with an NDA after leaving the government, when you're protecting, when you're hoarding and preventing information that can benefit all of humanity, every man, woman, and child on this planet, and you are restricted from talking about it because of a stupid ass piece of paper that will put you in jail if you violate it, that's crap.
Yeah, I agree. There should be a point in time where you could be released from that oath, but
Well,
apparently
that you
it's for life.
shouldn't be forced to restrict information that could be of such beneficial nature. Now, on the flip side, I think, and I don't know for certain because I'm not in that position, but if I held in my hand definitive proof of what we're talking about and this technology that could benefit all of humanity, and I was sworn to secrecy, I think I would probably violate my secret oath and take a risk of going to jail, because I think the benefit to the human population of this planet would far outweigh the suffering that I would go through in going to jail. I would lose my house. I would lose my family. My daughter would grow up without a father, but humanity would be changed forever.
Mhm.
The only reason that I wouldn't do that is if I didn't know. If I didn't have all the answers, if I you know, was talking about it but didn't have access to it, never really
Yeah.
saw it.
So maybe term limits on an NDA. I like the idea of that. I don't think it would ever happen, but it's a nice thought. It's a nice sentiment. We lost Michael. I think he might have disconnected his phone when he was moving around. He was adjusting, and but Jeremy, real quick, you've been here for 2.5 hours, brother. If you want to tap out.
My daughter's already in bed. My wife is probably snoring already. So
we appreciate it. I appreciate it very much, and I know everybody in the chat appreciates it. We still got people here listening. Photo 7, thanks for your question. Thank you for being here. Do you think other countries would put out a better report? And that's a great question.
Wow.
So let Michael give a quick a little quick answer on that. Do you think other countries could come up with a better report that would be more compelling, that could put pressure on the U.S. government?
Belgium certainly could, because
Who?
they had huge sighting in 1989. Belgium, they could do it.
Okay.
They could certainly do it. Mhm.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that, Michael? Because I'm not familiar with that.
In 1989 and 1990, there were 5,000 eyewitnesses that saw multiple huge triangles that were 200 feet per side that had tubes, pipes, and cylinders on the bottom of the craft. They were projecting high-intensity beams of light down on fields that were a football field across. They had a red light detached from it. These things were making tremendous maneuvers, multiple Gs. The Belgian Air Force released the radar. We've never really done that too much in this country. So I think the Belgium could do that. The UK could do it. I don't think that the U.S. is really the only show in town here. So yeah, I think other countries could do something.
I think Argentina could do it. Argentina has a continuing version of our Project Blue Book that we gave them, that we implemented into Argentina, that they have continued to use and collect data. I think Argentina, given the right motivation, could spill the beans on a lot of stuff.
Yeah. John Poe says Brazil. Your
Michael, your
connection's
audio is sketchy.
a little bit intermittent. It keeps getting real scratchy, and then it'll clear up and get scratchy. Are you on a Wi-Fi?
I'm on a Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's going to be a little bit of a problem, but we'll just work through it. I apologize to the people listening. If it starts, I'll just stop you, and then you can try again. So there is one thing and we'll start to wind this down because Jeremy's been here for 2.5 hours, and it's late over there where you're at too, Michael. And my family's home now, and they're knocking on my door already. But there is one thing I wanted to bring up because Jeremy mentioned it earlier. It is part of the report that I had a really big question about because I didn't quite understand exactly what this meant. And I can't read it on the little screen there, but in a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. Well, Michael, can you shed some light on what does that mean?
Let's see. Process radio frequency energy. Well, if you go to QFOS 2457 West Peterson Avenue, which is now under the jurisdiction of David Marler in Albuquerque, he's got all the QFOS files. There is a CE2 report on UFOs, all the physical effects that UFOs have on machinery, have on people, have on nature, on trees. I'm talking about stopping car engines, running out electrical systems. There's cases where entire wiring harnesses have been destroyed by these things, picked up on radar. That could be what they're talking about, the secondary CE2 physical effects. There's a whole report on those.
Interesting.
I'm going to take the pragmatic view on it. Everything biological, the human body puts out radio frequencies, right? So in a small number of cases, military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy associated with UAP sightings. Well, to begin with, they've already admitted that they don't know what these are in 144 of the 143 of the 144 cases, if you go by strict definition. So these are unidentified things. But then they go ahead and they say that it could be air clutter, it could be foreign adversarial tech, it could be our tech, it could be something else. They give all these possibilities. A potted plant will give off radio frequency. If you have a sensor, that is reading like a tri-field meter, right? Picks it up. That is them saying that military aircraft systems processed radio frequency energy. It doesn't say it interpreted it. It doesn't say it heard anything. It doesn't say it was broadcasting a discernible signal, only that a radio frequency emission was measured. It doesn't mean crap.
All right. Well, that's Jeremy's hardline reply. And let me see. I think that was the really the only big question that I had, because I didn't understand exactly what that meant, other than these things are emitting radio frequencies, and is it in the form of radiation, like when a radio tower emits radio frequencies, it puts out radiation. And again, it's
static electricity affects the radio frequencies.
It's ambiguous wording that doesn't clear up anything for anybody.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Okay. Here. This is one thing that I thought was interesting and a little bit disturbing. And when I posted it on Twitter, I think this is when people unfollowed me, because I was like, "This is a clear threat to military assets, is it not?" The UAPTF has 11 reports of documented instances in which pilots reported near misses with the UAP. That's not a threat?
No, it's a danger. There's a huge difference between a threat and a danger.
What do you think, Michael?
I think the UAP know exactly what they're doing.
The UAP know exactly what they're doing?
The UAP know exactly.
So they're buzzing our pilots.
They're not going to hit any F-18s. They're not going to hit any F-15s. They know what they're doing.
So
If you have the ability to fold
space
space and time, if you have the ability to traverse the cosmos and fold time and cross dimensions, you're not going to bounce into an F-18.
Well, I'm certainly not the smartest guy in the room, and I appreciate you guys being patient with my questions, my rudimentary questions. I still think that this was a step in the right direction. It's not blowing open the barn doors for everybody to see, what's in the vault, but it feels to me like it's a step in the right direction, even if it's a small baby step. I still feel that way, and I get where you guys are coming from too. I totally respect that.
I don't think it was a step in any direction. I think it was a jump up and down, and it didn't change anything.
Yeah. So let me get your final thoughts, and then we'll.
I think he just bounced.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't even know if he's still. No, there he is. He's back.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got kicked. I kicked myself actually, but hopefully that cleared up Michael's audio a little bit too. So, Michael, I'll give you the first crack at it. Go ahead and give me your final thoughts on the UAP report, everything else that we talked about, the grassroots effort type of thing that Jeremy's talked about. What's your overall kind of thoughts on what we were discussing right now?
Well, first of all, I know there were probably hundreds of thousands of people looking forward to this for 180 days. And when it came out, I predicted it would be a nothing burger. I was disappointed they didn't have any illustrations, no drawings, no sketches, no pictures, no gun camera footage, no 8x10 glossy black and whites, nothing, just text, right? All I'm saying is, where are the crash retrieval cases? Where are the alleged crash retrieval? I mean, more than one military person's come forward. Where are those? They're talking about they recovered the hardware and the craft was put on 18-wheeler lowboy tractor trailers with chains and tarps put on it. That's not an ambiguous encounter. They got the hardware. Where's the hardware? That's what I want to see.
Fair point, Jeremy.
They picked and chose the reports that they wanted to use so that they didn't have to answer any questions.
Right.
And the problem is people are reading this report as if it is a definitive statement, and it is anything but definitive. There is no definitive call on anything. They say, we can't say that it's U.S. tech. We can't say that it's not U.S. tech. But then people look at it and say, oh, crap, the report says it's not U.S. tech. No, it doesn't.
I will agree with you that it makes no definitive statements other than UAP are here. We've acknowledged that. The U.S. government has acknowledged that. We don't know what they are. Those two things are indisputable. I would suggest. I would put to you that.
But it doesn't change anything because by definition, UAP means unidentified right off the bat.
But it's acknowledgement from the U.S. government that we've never had.
It was acknowledgement when we had a task force that was called Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. That was as much acknowledgement as is in this report.
Okay. I'm not trying to change your opinions, not trying to dispute or debate you guys. I respect your opinions 100%, and that's why I wanted to hear what you guys had to say about this. I still feel a little bit optimistic about it, man. And I hope you guys don't unfollow me and block me on Twitter and Facebook.
Oh.
I just remain an optimist. That's just the way that I'm wired. I
Be
want this.
optimistic for the
I want
civilian army. Don't be
more to come
optimistic
out.
from the United States
I'm
government.
100% more optimistic about the grassroots effort, the science, the civilian science effort, and what you're doing, Michael, by educating the public. I'm 100% more optimistic about what you guys are doing than what the government is doing. I wish they would take what you guys are doing as a precedence and get with the program. Because, like you said, if they don't do this, some other government may do this, and the U.S. is going to get left in the dust. What would happen? That's a great question. What would happen if another government, brought forward their alien bodies and their UFO, crash retrieval debris? Michael, what do you think would happen?
I think that's possible, but something tells me that they get their hands slapped really bad and really quick.
That's probably true.
Really quick.
That's probably true. We're gonna have to work on your internet connection, Michael. We'll talk after, afterwards and get that worked out. But Jeremy, so your thoughts on that? What do you think would happen if another government brought their stuff out of the basement?
I think it depends on which government it would be. If it would be a foreign adversary or if it would be a foreign ally. If it was an ally, they would turn into an adversary very quick. If it was an adversary, I think we would try to make them an ally very, very quickly, and it would change the entire scope of geopolitics.
Would that be a bad thing?
Change is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you do it as a knee-jerk reaction, it usually typically is.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, real quick, let people know how they can find your information, find out what you're doing, keep up with you. Jeremy Unidentify One.
Find me on Twitter right
on
there.
Twitter.
Jeremy Unidentify One. I threw out a tweet earlier today saying it's got my email address in there. If people want to see how I built the Osiris, I'm going to be putting together a step-by-step and a kind of a disclosure video process on that, because I know there's a lot of people that are upset about the report and they want to go get their own data, and I'm going to show them how to do it.
That's awesome, man. That is very awesome. And Michael, you have a book out, Dark Files. It's available on Amazon. You're also on Facebook.
Sure.
And do you have a website?
I don't have a website.
No website. Are you on Twitter at all?
No Twitter.
Okay. And is there any other way that people can reach out to you?
Just Facebook is fine.
Okay. So yeah, you're pretty responsive on Facebook. And actually, I would encourage you to try out Twitter, because UFO Twitter is a pretty could be a volatile place, but it could also be a very what's the word I'm looking for, where you get things done, Jeremy. They work against each other, but they also work together, and they tend to get things done at times.
It's an interesting group of a very diverse group of people, places, thoughts, ideas, and most of them are in capital letters.
It's a very diverse community, and I like it. Some of the people in UFO Twitter don't like me, I guess, but that's okay. But if you're content on Facebook, then people could just jump over there and check out your work. I definitely encourage people to check out the book. I read it. It's awesome. I want to have you back on, Michael, so that we could talk more about your work in depth. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, andrewhall.com. I'm on Twitter and Facebook, and my phone number is public. So if you guys want to call me and talk to me, more than happy to talk to anybody. So with that, everybody who was here in the chat room, thank you guys all for participating in the conversation. Jeremy, you're awesome. Thank you for hanging out with me almost 3 hours tonight.
Hey, no worries. Anytime.
Michael, I'm sorry about all the complications we had, but those complications, I think, were just distractions and trying to keep us apart, man. We were meant to talk because there was some good things that were said. I think you and Jeremy have a lot in common, and you guys should talk afterwards.
Yep.
Yes.
And just remember, folks, when you read the UAPTF report, it wasn't written for us. It was written for our adversaries.
That's a good point. All right, everybody. Thank you and have a good night. Peace out.
Enjoy.